I've just been joined by Simon Napier-Bell. Now, the only thing I can say about you, apart from the fact that you were the manager at one stage of TVAM, of what was a pop group,
at one stage, at this stage.
At this stage, yes. Indeed, still excellent, is that you are a sort of an unauthorized, an unofficial biographer of all that was going on in the British rock backstage, you say, with its trousers down in the 60s and 70s. Now, I read this racy sort of pop version of a Mickey Spillane thriller last night, in which you really do, as the book claims, lift the lid off the music scene, feel around inside, dig into the darkest corners, come up with strange tales, puts down some sick people, explodes some myths, deflates egos, names names, and tells tales. Was it exactly as you describe it? At one level, yes, entertainment, as we were talking about. At another, a bit seamy, a bit not right.
Well, everything's a bit seamy, isn't it? Behind the doors of TVAM.
Not at all. Impeccable. No nunnery has been more smoothly and fairly run.
A lot of people have said to me, is it really like that? Yes, of course it's like that. But when you write something, you take out one thing and you put in another. There are two sides to it. That's one side. It's not really the business side. That was the fun side and the seamy side.
I mean, you got the title of your book, You Don't Have to Say You Love Me, because you lied that you had a lyric written for Dusty Springfield and then wrote it in the back of a taxi.
I didn't lie. I just said I'd write the lyric. I wrote it in the back of a taxi.
Now, look, here we are, and we have stars from the last 2 decades and still contemporary stars, and we have yourself who is manager and was producer and so on and so forth. Give Janine advice. Is she going into a world that really is full of these pitfalls like Eric faced? Tell her what to do. That's what the lady has asked.
You make your own pitfalls, won't you, if you want to, and you won't if you don't. I can't advise them on that. I think people really, if they want to go into the business, that's the most crucial thing, is they really want to. Oh, yeah. If someone comes to me and you can pick out who's going to be successful initially by the people who really absolutely dedicatedly want to get into it. They come to you and they're so determined and they're so driving, they're such a force, that's why they're the right people.
Gary Numan, did you do that with somebody? Did you drive yourself to the equivalent of a manager, a producer, and say, you know, I'm determined to make it?
No, I was too nervous. The only reason I signed to an independent is because I didn't have the nerve to go to a major, because I didn't like walking through the big doors. I didn't use a producer. I did it myself because I didn't have the courage to play my songs for a producer, to get his opinion of them. And it went like that, really. I kept running in the background, and I don't know why it happened. I was just lucky. I sort of fell into the right hole at the right time, I suppose.
And I mean, at one stage, and one for you, I'm sure you hope again, at one stage, I mean, you had 3 records in the top 20 at the one time, which by any standard is a pretty good achievement, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's extremely unusual what Gary's saying. I mean, normally, as a manager, I would only pick up people who had that drive. I mean, I make myself very inaccessible. People can't get hold of me when they call up. That's not because I'm being snooty or anything. No. It's just that if they can get hold of me, I know they've already shown some initiative and some ability to push. Yes. And I think, you know, that absolute desire above everything to be a star is the most important aspect of being a star.
Well, we were talking just before you joined us about the possibility that you could actually make some initial early publicity, either with respect to Janine by appearing on page 3, or by having so much money that you could just push somebody.
You won't sell a record, never. No record's ever made that way. Never heard of a record which has been a hit from any other reason that people bought it and wanted to buy it. They can be hyped. You hear about the charts being hyped. That means that you pay or manipulate the charts to get your record in the bottom end of the chart. But if nobody goes out and buys it, then it still won't be a hit.
Yeah. What about it seems to me that perhaps in the 60s, in the middle to late 60s, pop groups, very popular pop groups, obviously we think of the Beatles in Britain, became not just the people that the kids wanted to listen to, but wanted to ape and to follow in every particular.
Well, that's completely the nature of rock music. All the groups really represent different clubs. And kids come along and say, I like that group, I like looking like Duran Duran, or I want to dress up in studs and leather and be a heavy metal. And they really pick their groups according to their own idea of a lifestyle. And then by buying the records, they join the club. And very often you'll find kids who actually don't like the music very much, and they decide to get to like that music, so they identify with a certain group.
Yeah, but I mean,
yeah, the sort of thing, the thing that happened with the Rollers was, it was more, like, as you were saying, like, the sort of kids are, like, they're looking for something, you know, they've got to be involved with something, and if they can dress like whoever they idolise or whatever, then it's all the better.
Initially, didn't
you? Yeah.
But still, it's like a club, definitely. I mean, they see the Bay City Rollers and say, I want to be in the club which fancies the Bay City Rollers or screams at the Bay City Rollers.
But it seems to me there was an innocence about nearly 25 years ago when I thought I looked like Adam Faith, so therefore tried to ape a
very innocent.
Very innocent, yeah. I'll put it, what do you call it, a Tommy Steele sweatshirt on, and then you, of course, you try to comb her hair look like Elvis Presley or have a kiss curl like Bill Haley. It seems a bit more sophisticated and less innocent now. And the latest development is boys either dressing up as girls or pretending or making fun of the whole sexual relationship between men and women. Is that just an image? Is that just the 80s fun?
Personally, I think that the pop and rock scene and the music reflects what's going on around them rather than the other way around. I don't really think pop or rock influence.
Do you think that, Gary? Do you think it's a reflection?
The same. No,
Yeah.
we just reflect.
It's a
We
reflection.
don't change anything. We very rarely start anything other than clothes fashion.
See,
Wait a minute now. You say you
just see
don't
the
change
artists.
anything or
Well,
start things.
Yeah, but you
No,
see
we
the
don't.
artists. You see the artists who go out and do that. You see Boy George.
Right.
You don't go out to the clubs, which are full of kids like that, from people from which Boy George or Marilyn came. So you think that they're doing it. They're not. They're just one of dozens of kids who
Well,
are like that.
all right, hard case will make a bad law, and an individual example proves nothing. But you say one doesn't go out into the clubs. I mean, the first time ever, after appearing on television for a few times, that I was asked to do a public appearance was to judge a Boy George lookalike competition at Southend-on-Sea.
But I can tell you that
now
could have
that
been
was Boy George.
But that
Hold
could have
on.
been held before Boy George was famous. I mean, there were Boy George.
But it didn't change anything,
I
did
think
it?
Boy George
Didn't
is slightly
start
different
anything.
from that. I mean, the guy is...
Yeah, but, there were,
like the
but
guy
you know
whose
the
thing is
degree to
original.
which those clubs, long before Boy George or Marilyn, anyone emerged, were full of those sort of semi-transvestite people. And yet Boy George toned it down. I mean, Boy George was usually around in full drag for a long period.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'd love to know your views on, and again, apologies because we're sort of gradually moving towards being out of time. We'll continue it over breakfast. Is I do honestly think that you have a power to influence younger people in a way which you may not be exercising consciously, but you are having an effect on them, and you have no authority over them and no control over them.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I mean, there's absolutely no control over what the groups are going to do. I mean, like, you get into the heavy metal stuff, and there's a lot of there's a lot of black witchcraft and that kicking around there. And it is. I mean, a lot of groups don't realise the power they have got, or maybe they do.
You see, Gary has a very clean image, a very proper one, so that he can be...
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's your image.
That's what they used to say about me.
He's disgusted now. I make him out to be some sort of dull person. No, but I mean, you're still with your family, and your mum and dad and your brothers are involved in the whole operation.
Yes.
All right, maybe when you have the white...
Because I don't get ripped off money-wise that way, isn't it?
Well, do pop stars, putative pop stars, is Janine about to get ripped off by Eric Faulkner? We probe.
There's a lot said about this. No, not very often. I think they've got to make it before they get ripped off, and by the time they've made it, you know, if the manager makes the artist successful, by then they get ripped off, it's up to them.
But it's a double edge, isn't it? Because sometimes you might appear to be making it. I mean, we've heard of one pop group at the moment, which is, for 5 years, is not going to make all that much money, but the management is going to pay for it all.
Who's that?
I'm not going to tell you because I can't remember the name at the moment. But somebody told me. Janine, do you look forward with great enthusiasm to embarking on your career?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to my show tonight.
Where is it?
The Hippodrome.
Right, you're in the Hippodrome. All right, if you're passing the Hippodrome, drop in. My thanks very much to the man who wrote You Don't Have to Say You Love Me in the Back of a Taxi, Simon Napier-Bell, to Gary Numan, of course, who we will see at the Air Show at the weekend, the bank holiday, to Eric Faulkner, and of course to Janine, and to everybody who appeared in the show, Rusty and Marcel Marceau, and everybody who sang and danced, and Sue Townsend, who's out writing autographs in our books. Next week's Saturday Call is on home security, and please don't forget that John Stapleton's Sunday show tomorrow will have the first television interview with the parents of poor little Holly Ruffy, the heart transplant baby, and a major interview with Frank Chappell on the eve of the retirement as the boss of the Electricians Union. Until next week, from all of us here, goodbye. Have a nice weekend.